You're listening to episode 44, Friday the 13th, part 3, directed by Steve Miner. Is it the most underrated sequel of the franchise? Let's find out on this episode of Video Villa Podcast. So in lieu of Friday the 13th, we decided to bring you nothing better than Friday the 13th.
Yeah. And also Becca's back.
Yay. If you guys missed it, definitely go check out our last episode for a surprise guest. It's definitely a good one. And I will leave it at that. That way you guys, maybe feel inclined to go check it out. Who knows? So there is also a previous episode that we did Friday the 13th, and I think we did it on Friday the 13th before.
No. We've done Friday the 13th, and then we did Friday the 13th part 2.
Yeah, so in numerical order comes Friday the 13th part 3.
Yeah, my goal is to go through all of them because little do y'all know, I just literally binge watched all of them. And I really we talked about part 3 a little bit in the part 2. And I want to come back. I wanted part 3 definitely needs to have its own episode because there's a lot to say about 3. And I don't think I have a popular opinion on it versus what I found on the internet. So I was like, you know what? That's even better to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. It's always best to ruffle feathers.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird how much people get mad at you liking something.
Yeah, like I literally was telling Logan earlier, like people love to hate shit more than they like to love shit. Yeah. Like and I'm sure it happens in all type of like niche interest, but like especially like in film, like movies, shit like that, people love to hate shit.
Well, I mean, let me just start off the gate. It's crazy that on Rotten Tomatoes, this is apparently the most hated one out of the entire franchise. But you
used to always say that Rotten Tomatoes like sucked. Like they were just so off in their ratings and stuff.
I don't give two shits.
You're like, they give such high ratings to just the most basic stuff.
Yeah, no, really. I don't give two shits about Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I used to care about IMDb, but like, to be honest, I don't care. Like I got tired of people telling me what I should like versus just watching it myself and judging if I do like it or not.
Yeah, don't be a sheep.
No, I'm definitely not because, I mean, I will say there is one movie I will die on the hill and that is Suicide Squad. The first one, I do like it. I think I'm not saying it's a great movie. I have a really good time and every time I catch it on TV, I watch it.
Yeah.
So, let's just say I am the minority in that scenario. Yeah. And it was funny reading the comments on part 2. A lot of people were like, this guy likes 3 more. And I'm like, yeah. How long has it been since you've seen 3? That was the thing. I don't know what it is I don't, a lot of people don't like this one. And I'm going to wait till we get to the end of it because I want to know what you think about it. And we'll, with normal fashion, we'll wait for the end of the episode. If it's something I don't know if Becca likes
wait
or
on
not.
The edge of your seats.
Yes. Do not skip ahead.
Yeah.
But no, really, to be honest.
Spoiler, it skipped to like, I don't know, an hour.
I mean, but to be honest, I mean, I really do enjoy this movie a lot. And is it my favorite in the franchise? No.
So you're about to say what you feel?
Well,
I was like, hold up a second.
No. I'm not saying it's my favorite in the franchise. It's not. But
tread lightly. You might release your answer early.
No. I'm not. When we talk, we'll get to my favorite and I'll disclose it then. But it's just funny because like, I don't know. I just feel like out of the entire franchise, there's a lot of them that are a lot worse than this one by far. And I say that meaning like, I don't mean that this one I think is bad. I just mean like, and compared to what other people might think, I think there's a lot of them out there that are not as good as this one by far. But I mean, that's why I think, I like it and I wanted to talk about it. And I do want to go in numerical order. So we will eventually go through all the franchise. Out of like,
how many are there again?
if you count Freddy versus Jason and the remake, there's 12. Yeah, because there's 10
Maybe.
Freddy versus Jason and then the remake, so that makes 12.
Well, technically, we started with 1 and 2 when we like first started our podcast, so we could do the 10th on like our 10th anniversary.
I mean, yeah, as long as we're still here around then, that would be great.
God willing, if you're Logan's mom.
that mediator, what? Meteor.
Yeah, did you make the dinosaurs meteor?
Meteor. Yeah, I made them a meteor. Meteor.
I don't think we can post that clip because copyright infringement, but
I don't know. People clip that all the time. It was a famous TikTok.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it started during COVID. It was great.
Yeah.
That definitely tickled our fancy when it first came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I was saying like if that giant meteor don't take us out.
I didn't even know there was a meteor heading towards us.
That's. If I start focusing on that, I'll get
so depressed.
I'll get super depressed.
It's like your Chernobyl adventures.
Chernobyl, yeah, the Chernobyl show. Oh God.
Nonetheless, during like the worst time of everyone during the pandemic, Logan decided to watch any and every documentary on Chernobyl and then wondered why he got like super freaking depressed. Like, I wonder why.
Super depressed and super terrified at all. Like I just woke up in like night sweats when I go to sleep at night.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's a joke. I didn't wake up in night sweats. But I was still very stressed out and very bummed out.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point.
A story for another day.
Yeah. But no, like what's called I finally, I've been talking to you off. I always wanted the Shout Factory box set, and I finally buckled down and was able to find it on Facebook Marketplace for a great deal. So I've been binge watching the Fridays, and I just like I got I wanted to talk about the third one, and I think this is a great time to talk about it because we do have Friday 13th coming up. And we have the Jason Market that we'll be tending at.
Yes.
We'll be vending there. That'll be at the Cult Classic Brewery and the DMV area. I'll put the information if any of you got locals in the area in the DMV.
Yeah, and if you want to come and hang out, we'll be there.
I will say this better at the end of the episode, and that's the one I'll clip.
There we go.
But yeah, so as far as like when not, I don't want to know what I don't know if what is your favorite or you think it's underrated and so forth like that. But like upon your first viewing of it, we don't have to go too much into details because I want your final opinion at the end. But like, what did you think about it when we first watched it?
I mean, it was good. It was very like to the point. There wasn't a whole lot of like extra stuff, which I love in any movie I watch, or else I stop caring. The end.
Yeah, it's funny.
My Google reviews are short. Anyone wants to take a look at them?
Yeah, it was funny. We were watching the movie, and what's called I'm sitting there, I'm sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden my phone dings off, and it's Becca's like her special notification I have on my phone. I'm like, "What are you doing? We're supposed to watch the movie." She's like, "It's important. Look at your phone." And this is what it was.
It was an outfit for my Portuguese, a Beetlejuice outfit, which we will be seeing, not early access, but earlier than most.
Now that's the one you want to talk about sequels. I don't know. We'll find out. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, but and I'll talk about it because I love Beetlejuice.
When this airs, it will be coming out. So in the comments, if you saw it over the weekend, let us know what y'all thought.
Yeah.
But yeah. So getting into some of the cool facts about the movie. I mean, we're starting right off after part 2. We go right into part 3. Literally, not even a year later. And who's back at the helm of director? Steve Miner. He did a great job in the second one. They brought him back for the third one. But yeah, he didn't really originally want to come back for the Friday the 13th franchise. He did the second one. He got to direct it, which he was very happy about. And he was in this kind of rut where he just felt like he didn't want to continue to be known as like the horror guy. And this was his first time directing, and Friday 13 Part 2 did very well. So he just thought that the offers would start coming in. And he waited around and it didn't. He even was in the process of working to direct a Chuck Norris film. And that even fell through. So, he was like, I don't really know what to do. And apparently, it's quoted that this was his idea. He was hearing that the cameras, 3D cameras were coming back. And, there's this new surgeon of 3D films. And he got the idea, it was like, Friday 3 in 3D. And he was like, okay. So then he called up the Paramount and was like, basically, gave them the pitch. And they're like, perfect, let's do it. Because this was the first film. This is the first film to use the Mark 3D system. This was a whole brand new 3D system that we had never seen before. And during this time, like 3D films in this era in the 80s started to make a comeback. And this was the one that really set it all off. 3D films were really big back in the day with like Alfred Hitchcock Dial M for Murder was in 3D. I mean, there's a bunch of other different ones. I believe there's a Black Creature of the Black Lagoon in 3D and so forth like that. So this was a completely new, different system, and it wasn't that kind of 3D. And this was probably, one of the better ways, I think, to make 3D is to have it be a horror film. I mean, we are fortunate, our generation, to get another resurgence of 3D in the late 2000s. We had My Bloody Valentine 3D. I mean, I'm assuming they still make movies.
We had a Final Destination 3D.
Yeah. Saw. There was a Saw in 3D and stuff like that. To be honest, I don't really care for the new 3D stuff. It kind of makes me sick for some reason. I don't. I guess I get
aged into motion sickness.
Yeah, I guess I get motion sickness. I don't know. What? What are you laughing at?
No, I mean, you probably do. I mean, it's you can get motion sick over 3D movies.
I don't know. Like, but I didn't always used to get motion sickness or whatever. But like, I can't even swing in a swing now without my stomach turning upside down. We took our son to the park one day, and I was just riding, not riding, but
riding the swing.
I get in the swing with him, and I start swinging back and forth, and on my fourth leg kick, I'm like, I don't feel so good, so I had to get up, and I was sick for like 2 hours. Probably.
No. See, you can spin me around, put me on a boat, put me on a swing, put me on a ride. I'm fine.
No, I can't do that anymore. I used to love that stuff. I can't do it.
That's like a couple weeks ago, I was chilling in our basement, and that's one of our offices is down there. And I was like spinning in Logan's chair. And I think I told you about it afterwards. I was like, I was seeing if it would make me sick. It did. It just got to test the waters. You never know.
Yeah, I'm done testing the waters. I think I already know.
Nah, I'm gravy.
But so Ron Kerr, he wrote the part 2, and then he was asked to come back to do the third one. And he didn't really want to come back. So they end up getting, I'm going to have to read my notes because I don't want to say their name wrong, but Martin Kitrosser and Carol Watson. Which actually they're a husband-wife duo, and they write together and stuff like that. So they were actually brought in to work on the script, and then they pretty much had a finished product. But then Petru Popscu, I believe that's how it's pronounced. But he was also brought in to kind of fix some like the rough edges and so forth like that. So we got 3 writers on this one, which was a little bit different. This was actually the first one to actually be released on Friday the 13th, which was pretty cool. So a couple more in the franchise history. And if you want to know a little fun fact about me, I was born on July 28th, 1989. And you know what movie came out on July 28th, 1989?
No.
Friday 13th.
That's information I would never know.
I don't know.
That's like the trivia questions. Whoever is good at trivia, why do you have so much random knowledge? Riddle me that. Whose talent is having random ass knowledge? Because, I mean, I'm sure I have it, but not in fucking trivia questions.
Well, Friday the 13th, part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. That came out on my birthday. That's pretty cool.
There you go. Yeah. Very excited.
Not a Friday 13th, but still kind of cool.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
The day it came out?
Yes. I was. I shot out of my mama. Was like, "Where's the nearest theater? I gotta buy a ticket. I want to sit here with my eyes open and watch this entire movie."
You still don't watch entire movies with your eyes open.
Hey.
Rarely.
Hey, we don't talk about that. What I do behind my eyelids is my business.
Okay. Whatever you say.
I have a hard time staying awake during movies. I do, even though if they're entertaining. I'm a sleepy guy sometimes. I be tired. Yeah. I wake up early.
I be napping.
But also, we do also typically watch these movies later at night.
You don't have to explain anything.
And it's been a long day, and I'm tired. And usually we watch them after we eat dinner, and I'm get a little sleepy from the potatoes.
I hear you.
Now, this is the one that we get the most infamous hockey mask, which would later on be in the staple of Jason, which is really cool because before we had the hockey mask, Stan Winston was actually brought in to make the Jason mask, the actual mask itself of his face, and they used that for most of the movie and some of the early scenes, and they actually shot a alternate ending there's stills of it, and I'll post some stills here, but they did shoot an alternate ending. But for some reason, there is no like actual video footage of it. I couldn't find, and I looked all through the special features in this, and it's not included. So I don't really. I mean, if it was out there, Shout Factory definitely would be including it. But the mask wasn't really what they were looking for. So that's when they got the ideas to cover up his face because they kind of wanted to hide his face and be like a reveal, kind of like in part two. And it is funny because Jason's face it's all over the place from, from 2 to 3 to 4, then to like 6 and, then 7 and 8. It's never the same face. I will say the face from part 3 to part 4 are the closest. But so they shot an ending with that. And after reviewing the ending, they didn't like it. So like, okay, we got to cover up somehow. And there's tons and tons of people have basically, took credit for the famous Jason mask. Long story short, I don't know which one's real. I mean, there's like 4 to 5 different stories, so I'm not going to say which one's real. Lord hold, someone apparently had a hockey mask and they put it on at that day. It was laying around and they are like, this looks great. So they put it over the Stan Winston mask. And that's what they used for most of the film. And what they did is once they got the look, they kind of took and they morphed it a little bit, adding the red paint on it and so forth like that. And that's what became the actual hockey mask that we see in the film. And it does suck. There's only like one scene and you can't really tell, but the flashback scene of Chris and Jason's encounter like the 2 years prior. If you look close, that is apparently the Stan Winston mask. But there's also claims that Stan Winston mask was never seen. So I don't know which one is actually true or not. So, but some quotes is saying that is close to the Stan Winston mask because you can't really get a good glimpse of his face. But then some people say that you never his face was never shown in the movie because I believe Richard Brooker, who played Jason, he says that the Stan Winston mask is never seen except for the stills post that I'll post here, but whatever. And if you look at Stan Winston's face, Stan Winston's mask versus what we saw on the movie, it is a little different. It's like the nose is a little bit different. And the eyes, the eye is like, they're like more like on par. And then the new mask, they kind of dropped the eye to make it like, I guess, a little bit more canon because the other eye in like part 2, the eye was dropped and kind of like droopy looking. But back to the endings. So apparently there was 3 endings. The original ending that we got in the film, unfortunately, it was really cool, but it was going to actually kill off Jason at the end. Like this movie was supposed to be the end for the Friday 13th franchise. That's how it was originally written. And over, in the original script, that's what it was like. And then apparently they took the original script and they made the novelization off it. Apparently in the novelization of Friday 13th Part 3, Jason does die. He gets his head cut off by Chris. And that is not what happened. That's not what filmed. So there was 2 endings that was filmed. The first ending that was filmed was actually Jason gets to the end of the gets up to Chris in the cabin, and Chris ends up opening the front door while Jason's outside, and she cuts his head off with a sickle, and it was that was it. That was the ending in the book. The second ending was the exact. It was the flip, where there was a dream sequence where Jason cuts off Chris's head.
Mhm.
All right, and then on the third ending is what we actually got, which was kind of like the dream sequence with Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to kind of leave it open to is Jason dead or is he alive kind of thing. Which if you've seen 4, it bleeds right into with 4 very, very well. And one thing right off the bat with this one is we do not get Jenny back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jenny she did not make a return for this one. We get the little, intro from part 2 in the beginning of it to let you know what just happened and so forth. But Jenny did not come back for the sequel. It was kind of like the same thing with like Steve Miner, where she thought all the offers were going to come in and she wanted to like save her roles for something different. She didn't want to just keep on doing horror after horror after horror. And unfortunately, the offers never came. And by that time, she had already passed on to, part 3. So it was kind of like, overdone with gone.
Yeah.
She did state in like one interview that she kind of wished she would have went back and did the script from 3, because the movie that we got is not the movie that was actually planned to be written. The movie that we got was, much different. We were actually going to get Jenny in like a mental asylum kind of like scenario, like a mental hospital, where people were dying left and right and they didn't know if it was Jason or not. So it's kind of like that person living with the trauma after post
Traumatic event. Yeah.
Exactly. What do you think about that? Do you think, was that been something that you would have preferred more?
I mean, yeah, that would have been a good twist on it.
Yeah.
Because then essentially that would mean he's left the camp, which they claimed like he couldn't do. Like you're only in trouble if you're within Camp Crystal Lake.
Well, that was another thing, is because like this one doesn't take place in Camp Crystal Lake. It takes place in a completely different camp.
Oh, I got the idea that it was still in the same lake.
I mean, I guess it could have been like the same theory, like it was a shared lake, but this was, it was Hidden Haven or something like that.
Yeah,
So
I know the name is different.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would have been kind of cool, because I do like the fact that I do like the idea of like Jason like leaving and, coming after,
Yeah.
Jenny, because she's the one who got away. I mean, like he did with, was Alice in the first one.
Yeah.
Or is it Allison?
I don't know. I think it was Alice. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was Alice. But yeah, I mean, like I like that because like in part 2 he goes after her, so he leaves the lake to go after her, and I thought that was kind of a cool aspect of the fact that, like,
I forgot he left the lake in that too. Yeah.
Yeah, because I kind of like that. Like, I do like the woodsy aspect and so forth. And I do like the fact that like things are confined to a cabin and it has a certain vibe and a certain feel with these movies. I do like that. But it is interesting to see him get out of that element and like, go after other people.
Yeah.
I do think that this Jason, played by Richard Brooker, which I stated earlier, I do like this Jason. I like the way he moves. I like the way he's kind of built. One of his things that he was very adamant about was he didn't feel like Jason had a need to run.
Yeah.
He just stalks his prey.
Yeah.
So he's just more of this big lurking presence versus like chasing after people and so forth. And it definitely is a vibe when you watch the franchise, and it kind of moves like that for the rest of the films. Like that's the whole thing, is like, later in the films they're like, oh, the only way he can get just point A to point B is teleport, because it makes no sense how he's already there.
Yeah.
So that's when like the supernatural elements come in play. But with this one, they have them like just like stalking his victims and so forth, and you don't really see him. So we got rid of the camera view thing, but what we do is we just see glimpses of him like going in between the woods and stuff like that. I do like that a lot. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think he did a really good job. I will say my favorite Jason, though, is Ted White. He's in the fourth. So when we get to the fourth one, I want to talk about him because I think he played I know a lot of people like Kane Hodder, but like to be honest, I think Ted White. I mean, he's passed away. So has Richard Brooker. He's passed away too. But I mean, he was just I don't know, just like a beast. I don't know,
Yeah.
like just part 4 is he's just one brutal Jason. And he was an older stuntman too. I mean, he was like, I think in his 50s when he did that. So like, I don't know. I thought he was very agile for me. And then, 50s back then versus 50s now, that's a completely different age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, like it's nothing too crazy. There's nothing shocking to go over. Just some couple of things I wanted to highlight before we start to talk about the movie. Did you want to read the back of the VHS?
Yeah. Friday the 13th, an idyllic summer turns into a nightmare of unspeakable terror for yet another group of naive counselors. Ignoring Camp Crystal Lake's bloody legacy, one by one, they fall victim to the maniacal Jason who stalks them at every turn. Friday the 13th, Part 3 will have you frozen with fear as Jason finds his way into your living room. The end.
And I love I like the intro, like not the intro, what the intro, what I'm talking about, the artwork on the box. It looks great. And also it's weird, it's part 3, the original poster had the 3D, you know what I mean? And it's just different because like, obviously when the original poster came out, it was to be kind of like the last one. Not everyone knew that they were going to make a sequel. But then obviously you put the part 3 and you change it up a little bit once we actually got the VHS and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is 1982. Like literally, like we got 81 was part 1. I mean, I'm sorry, part 2, and then right next year, part 3.
Yeah.
Which that was kind of cool. Like, I mean, I really wish we had something like that, now. You know what I mean?
Like a consistent flow of sequels.
Yeah, I really do.
You're not waiting for like ever.
Yeah, I really do. Especially when it comes to like a horror franchise, like something that like you can do, because I really do think they did a really good job with the Friday 13th franchise. It's just, it's almost like every movie that director got to do what they wanted to do with the franchise and take it which way they wanted to take it. I understand the continuity problems, but I think it just makes it kind of fun when you just like watch it for what it is,
Yeah.
I don't know, like so I think we talked about it on the last one, but the only one that we got in our generation was the Saw franchise, and I didn't really care for that.
Yeah, I lost interest pretty quickly in that.
Yeah, after the third one, I stopped giving a shit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. But so this Friday the 13th, part 3, it kicks off with essentially an immediate recap of Jenny's like last moments with Jason. So actually one of my favorite scenes from part 2, which is like the mental aspect where Jenny tries to fool Jason that like she's his mom. So you pick up at that scene essentially, and then you move forward to through the scene to her almost kill, or like where she almost dies, into pretty much immediately this camp outside Crystal Lake.
Yeah, they pretty much scrapped that whole like that dream sequence. The fact that him jumping through the window, that just like that never even happened.
Yeah.
And they kind of like, what was it, Steve? Like Steve, I guess he's still alive because he helps her to the cabin.
Yeah.
So, with the flow of the film, this is technically taking place the next day.
Yeah, because as you approach your next scene and you're at this like camp store, you see the couple that's at the camp store, they're arguing, or whatever, bickering, and the wife is sitting inside watching the news, which is where she hears about the mass murder at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, and
so it kind of kicks off like it looks back, but then it immediately moves you into like a newscast to show you like, okay, this is still present time where part 2 left off.
Yeah, it definitely like I said, the continuity issues here, like it does suck if you think about it, because you're like, okay, just not even 24 hours ago, Jason took a machete to the side of his body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now he's running around completely willy-nilly with no problems, no issues.
Well, remember, he doesn't run.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be lurking.
No, he's lurking around with no problems, no issues.
Yeah.
That does suck a little bit. It would have been kind of cool, like maybe if they like, maybe put a little bit of blood on his green shirt and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
like truly bled the two parts into each other.
Yeah. I mean, like, or like, maybe a scene of showing him like stealing these clothes by chance. Maybe,
or cleaning himself up or whatever.
Exactly.
Even if it was like a behind the head shot, like of him, I don't know, mending himself together to a point to then continue on killing.
And it would make sense. So let's just say, okay, he's showing up to this general store, right? And they live in the general store area with the couple. I mean, and we see the laundry. Oh, yeah, maybe he took some of the laundry off the laundry line and he threw that on and got rid of his coveralls. And then let's say when he kills this general store family, and then he takes the supplies.
He kills them.
Yeah. And then
he takes the next part.
Well, we're going to get to it, but he takes the supplies and then mends himself. I mean, yes, maybe today's time we might have saw something like that. They probably didn't think too much about it back then, but it does suck because it's kind of like, well, I mean, you just made the last one. Yeah. It's fresh off your mind. And Steve Miner, like, you did direct the last one, so you know what happened. Maybe work that in a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, so he's at the general store and he's looking around. The wife keeps hearing random noises. The husband's kind of like oblivious at first. And then she gets extra spooked because she watched that newscast. Yeah. But she goes to her husband who's in the general store with his bunny and pretty much tells him, put the bunny away. And so unfortunately he goes out to put the bunny in some shed and realizes all of his other bunnies are dead.
Yeah, I believe it was a rattlesnake or something that killed them all.
Yeah, so you get a fake jump scare where the rattlesnake jumps out of the bedding of the snake at him.
Yeah, and then I didn't bring it up at the beginning, but it's kind of like self-explanatory. This is a 3D film, so there's a lot of coming at you at the camera. It is pretty cool, though. I do like it.
It's a little cheesy when you don't have 3D glasses on.
It is a little cheesy.
And you can see where they really you can see where they really try to cater certain scenes for that 3D visual.
I think that's why people shit on this so much, and they just focus on too much of those aspects versus actually focusing on what matters, like the kills and the kind of how everything unfolds and the characters and stuff like that. I think that, my personal opinion, I think that is why so many people shit on it, because it's the crappy 3D one. I'm like, but is it really a crappy movie? You know what I mean? Because like this was groundbreaking for the time. And also it made a shitload of money. It was very successful. And not only is it very successful, it knocked E.T. out of the #1 spot at the time in theaters. So it beat E.T. because it was the #1 movie for the longest time. And it finally knocked him out of first place. So, I mean, this movie did really well and people liked it back then. But for some now, when you ask people and you go on certain forums and stuff like that, and you go into certain websites and you see what's the worst film, this is the one that's rated the worst, which I just think, I don't know. I don't think people watch the movie. I think they're just making the assumption off of something that they heard, or it's been a long time since they actually watched the film.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, potentially. But so then you pretty much you get that fake jump scare, but I believe he goes back to the corner store, into the store, and that's where he dies, right?
Yeah.
Because he starts to hear noises and stuff. And he's checking these, I guess, a bajillion different closets. I don't know. Because he's also turning lights on inside them from the outside.
Yeah, it's just funny because you did make a comment the husband, you did say he remind you of my dad. Where he's just
all the animals, and the snacking.
And the snacking. Well, yeah. Because that's funny because we do see him he walks over, grabs some peanuts, eats the peanuts, and drinks some juice out of the container that he's trying to sell. He eats donuts out of the box, and then he's got the rabbit. Well, I thought that was pretty accurate.
Yeah. So he keeps hearing rattling around inside the store. He's checking all these different closets, and would you know it, he opens one and gets axed.
Yeah, Jason hits him right in the chest with that meat cleaver. And I do think this funny because this guy, I think his name is Harold, and they were throwing him off as being a fat pig. And if you look at it, he's actually not fat. It's all just fake padding to make him look fat.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, to go with the character. But I mean, like I said, it's not the best, but when we get a nice meat cleaver to the chest, plenty of blood. The kills in this movie are good. Okay, I don't still don't understand why this is not ranked higher than 2, because I do feel like the kills in this movie are better than 2. Even if you add in the the uncut kills that we talked about in the last one, even those uncut kills, I do feel like 3 is still got better kills. But yeah, so Jason kills Harold in the store, and now his wife, she hears something, she's scared or whatever, and it's really cool because so then she's looking through the little peephole in the door, the little glass window.
Well, first she notices that her sewing needle is missing. She was knitting, and she comes back after complaining to Harold to put the rabbit away, and she's like, "Where did my sewing needle go?" And then she's kind of looking for that, but she hears, the noise outside.
Yeah, and then she goes to look through the little peephole window, and he reaches right in, grabs her by the face, and then stabs her through the back of the head with a sewing needle, which is a great kill.
Yeah.
Great kill. Like I said, these kills are good. I like it. And it's really nice. So this is right off the gate. So the movie opens up, we get the introduction for part 2, kind of what's going on, what's happening, because this was a big thing for the franchise. They used to do this for the longest time until, we actually had rental stores and people could rent and figure out what happened, because 9 times out of 10, either you saw it on TV or you saw it in the theater, and then you needed a recap. So we get our little recap, which they can continue to do on, I think, even till 7 or so forth. Yeah, so we get their little recap straight off the bat. We get 2 nice clean cut kills right in the beginning. Sets the tone and the tempo of what we're going to experience for this movie. So now, after our first 2 kills within the first 20 minutes of the film, now we're meeting our new, not camp counselors, but our new teens.
Yeah, I like how the back of the film calls them camp counselors, but nowhere do they act like these are camp counselors in a camp that kids are coming to.
No.
They more or less make it seem like Chris's dad's camp.
Yeah.
That they're just going to for fun.
Yeah, that's the way I got it, and I like that, because that's different. We don't need to keep on...
The back of the VHS claims otherwise.
Well, I'm just saying, we don't need to keep on rehashing the whole camp counselor story. He's just, now at this point, he's just freaking killing people.
Yeah.
So we get introduced to our characters. We get Chris, the lead. We get Andy and Debbie, which is kind of like the couple.
Yeah.
We get Shelly, which is the jokester / unattractive one because he's fat, which is a stereotypical character. And then we get Vera. We have a couple more characters that we'll get introduced to later, but these are our first new set of characters. What did you think about Chris as the leading character?
I liked her a lot.
Yeah, I think she did a good job.
She held up, I feel like, just as good as Jenny did.
Yeah, I think she did a good job. And that was the cool thing, is I really did like her. Like I said, I've been watched all these last week. That was just out of fun, because I got this and I wanted to binge watch them all. I've had the DVD set, but I wanted to watch the Blu-rays and all those special features, because I got tired just finding it on YouTube, and now that I have it, let me use it. And I will say, there are some lead characters that are not the best. And I will say, so far, we got 3 great characters. We got Alice, Jenny, and now we got Chris. And I feel like, to be honest, Chris and Jenny are some of the best female leads in the entire franchise, hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down. I think everyone is going to remember Alice because she was the original. But to be honest, I feel like the way that she carries herself and stuff like that, I really do like. Yeah. I do like having a lead that I care about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, after we get introduced to the new cast, we do get this funny little scene, where they're walking up to Vera's house to pick her up, and her mom opens the door, and she's Hispanic, and she's like, "Vera's not coming."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Okay." They're confused. She said she was going to be able to come this weekend. They shut the door, and you hear all this yelling in Spanish, whatever. And Chris is talking to Debbie. She's like, "What are they saying?" She's like, "I don't know. I flunked Spanish."
Yeah. But essentially, they're picking up their friends. They're gathering everybody to go to camp. And after they get things situated with Vera, you get the scene where they are driving to camp. Well, you also get a fake scare. So before they get to Vera's house, someone jumped out.
Shelly does the
Yeah.
whole like stabbing in the back. He's got the weird mask on.
Yeah, so Shelly had jumped out and kind of like faked stabbed, I believe Chris. I don't think it was.
No, he fake stabs Andy in the back. With
Okay,
that.
I
It's
was
a
like,
rubber
okay.
knife and whatever. And it's kind of funny because he's got the little weird see-through mask and stuff like that. It's funny to think that like, out of all the masks that were around on set, and to think, the hockey mask is Shelly's mask that he finds and puts on. It's so funny to think that maybe there's an alternate reality where he could have put on that mask. If you think about alternate realities.
I don't. I'm sure some people do. I don't think that deep into these movies usually.
Well, I just think
some people do.
No, I'm just saying it's funny that the probability that could have like we could have got a completely different mask instead of a hockey mask. It could have been that mask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you also get a moment where Chris kind of like gets upset because you already could tell on the way to Vera's house that she's like a little bit uneasy, but you don't necessarily know why.
Yeah.
But they all gather up in the vehicle and, like I said, you've already gotten hints that Chris is like kind of on edge, but she feels inclined to go, on this camp trip back to the camp.
Yeah, we get an introduction.
Because it's been 2 years. You at least get a timestamp. It's been 2 years since whatever happened has happened. So they load up in the vehicle and they load up in the vehicle because they thought it was on fire. And this is where you get introduced to our next two characters.
Which are your favorite characters.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with Becca, but she loves a good stoner in a movie.
They're fantastic. I also love that 70s show. But so they think the car's on fire. They jump in. It's because their friends are toking up. Nonetheless, they all head off to camp. However, on the way there, they pass the camp store, which has tons of police officers in it. Which they had earlier, speaking of the stoners, thought they were getting pulled over because the stoners were smoking in the vehicle. But the police passed by them and they didn't think anything of it, like I said, until they got to the camp store and realized something had happened.
Yeah.
They were carrying bodies out and something happened. And Chris is like literally like rubbernecking, like completely turned around in the driver's seat watching. And you get, I don't think it was Vera that warned her.
No, it's Debbie. She sat in the front seat.
Yeah, I keep wanting to call Debbie Shelly, but Shelly is obviously the dude. But Debbie tells her, don't let your imagination get the best of you. Don't think about it.
Yeah, because this little incident that happened, they're really keeping it hush-hush for most of the movie. We don't know what's going on.
All you know is, like, you think, like, okay, well, she wasn't in any other movies, so it couldn't be a run-in with Jason, but, like, who knows what it could be.
Exactly. So the gang are headed out to the lake. And we end up getting another scene of, it can't be a Friday 13th without the crazy local.
Yeah.
So we get a guy randomly taking a sleep in the middle of the road. And once again, we got to get another good 3D gag where he's got a freaking eyeball and he lingers it in front of the TV.
And he does the cliche, like, warning.
Yeah. He gives them the warning, like, like you're doomed. You're doomed.
Yeah.
Don't go. I've seen what the future or whatever. I don't know what he says. It's kind of one of those things like you could have just took this out of the movie. It was pointless. But just to get another 3D eye gag or something like that.
Well, so they all have the town crazy. You're like, is that the killer? I mean, if you don't know by 3 that the town crazy is not the killer, then obviously.
The town crazy pretty much drops off after 4. Once it gets into 4, they just drop
because you're beating a dead horse. You can no longer convince people that it might be
Ralph's
the town
dead,
killer.
so he can't keep on being Ralph.
Yeah, true. So they arrive to the camp and they immediately all want to go skinny dipping. However, Chris is still really uneasy, so I got the vibe that she kind of wanted to like canvass the camp. Like, just check it all out.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you can tell her, like, she's like, let's put our stuff away. No, we're going to go skinny dipping.
And she's like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. Then we get introduced to a new character, which is Rick, which is a love interest of Chris. Apparently, they got some history. And it's so weird because we know it's been 2 years since the incident, but I couldn't remember if she was saying, like, it's been 2 years since she's been to the camp because they keep on using words like months. Several months. I'm like, well, if it's been a long time, why don't you just say 2 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. if it's supposed to be important that it was, she hasn't been there since 2 years, but apparently some time has passed, and this guy Rick really likes her.
Yeah, and he doesn't really know what happened. He just knows that it's been a while since they've seen each other, and since she has been around, essentially. And unfortunately, he, like, jump scares her, too, which, like, I used to hate that as a kid. Like, when you had friends that were really big into, like, pranks and, like, specifically jump scare pranks.
Grayson does it all the time.
He doesn't get me, but.
Well, the thing, so the couple weeks ago, school was out, and also his summer camp was out, and I'm working downstairs in the basement, and sometimes I'm not paying attention. I don't hear him paddle down the steps. And he scared the shit out of me one day. I mean, scared the shit out of me. Like,
no, I usually catch him before he can get me.
Well, that's like what he likes to do.
Either I get him back, which then he's not happy with me.
Yeah.
Or like I get him before he gets me, and then that ruins his fun. Or I usually just end up seeing him. Yeah,
he loves trying to scare you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, unfortunately.
He hasn't got me good yet, but I will say me and Grayson both usually get you good. I don't even try. I just exist. And Logan,
that one time,
craps his pants.
That one time.
At the apartment.
That one time, I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
That was on purpose, but I've also majorly scared you, and I'm just walking around.
I air punched, too. You're lucky I didn't hit you. You scared this shit out of me.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I wasn't even necessarily, I don't think I was trying to scare you. I was trying to surprise you. You were literally in the kitchen. I was in a living room that was connected to the kitchen. So it's not like I was, like, sneaking around.
You know when people, like...
I got as close to you as I could before you noticed, and I got real close.
No, but also, when, like, someone's, like, someone who's small is wearing an oversized hoodie, and they try to make themselves look like one being with, like, no legs.
Well, all I did was I tucked myself inside a very, very large hoodie and just got as close as I could to Logan while he was turned around busy in the kitchen until he noticed me, and I got pretty close.
I was doing dishes, and you just waited there, and you just waited.
And I waited very quietly, yeah.
Waited until I turned around. And the thing is, it wouldn't have scared me if you were just standing there. But the fact that I turn around and I see this blob, because you remember, like, one of my double XL hoodies, and it scares the shit out of me. I swear, like, my chest hurt and everything. Like, my shoulder was hurting. I'm like, I think I'm having a heart attack.
I haven't done that again because you were very upset, I guess, understandably. But now I just scare you just by existing. I don't have to try. That's because you're either hard of hearing or you're just in your own zone.
I think I just disassociate with what's going on too much.
I do the same thing, but at least I can hear people coming up.
Yeah, I turn the ears off.
Yeah, I hear you. But so everyone keeps... I like how I'm like, I hate it when people do that as kids. Now as an adult, I'm like, I crunched myself down into a hoodie and just snuck around the kitchen. No big deal. But yeah, so they jump scare and he stops there. Rick stops there. However, kind of intermittently until Shelly's death, he kind of does the same, like, shenanigans throughout, even though people tell him to, like, knock it off.
Yeah, and then with this whole Rick scenario and Chris, like, he, like I said, he likes her, and he wants to, he's like, I haven't seen you in a while. I really like you. Like, but you've been acting like you've just kind of like, and like we use the word ghosting, but like,
standoffish,
but she's kind of been ghosting him. Like, they haven't had conversations since the last time that they were at the lake. And he's like, I thought we were something, like, what's going on here? And she's just, I guess, ever since the incident, she's just very standoffish and so forth. Like, she needs to, I guess, be reacclimated to.
Which you find out kind of how these things are all intertwined later when they go off together and she kind of tells them the story, which also she tells everyone else the story, meaning the viewers.
Yeah.
Later down the road. But so you pretty much, like, her attention's drawn through the window to a barn that's off to the side of the camp, essentially, because the door's open, and so she's kind of, like, a little skeptical of that area, and she, in general, is a little freaked out, but she goes out to the van to get the bags, and Rick's going to go help her, and here you are again. You get Shelly, and he left the van door open and is hiding in the van. He says it wasn't on purpose, but he said he's just looking for something.
Yeah, he apparently, like, throughout the entire movie, that's his thing. He's brought a bunch of little joke things and so forth
in
like
this
that.
box.
And
yeah.
he's just, his thing is, I'm unnoticeable because I'm fat and I'm ugly. So I'm going to make you remember me by scaring you. And so I'll be relevant of some sort. Because that's his whole thing. That's what he ends up getting around to when he ends up talking to Barry. He's like, I'd rather do this than be thought as a nobody and not be remembered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, they're starting to get acclimated and so forth like that. And while they're bringing stuff in, they're starting to work on at the barn and a couple of times, a little bit has passed. We hear this scream. Loud scream, which sounds like a woman's scream, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's coming from inside the cabin. So they're all in the barn and in the lake. They come running in, group up together, go upstairs in the cabin, and they open up the closet, and there's Shelly, dead. He's got an axe to his head, which we think he might be.
Yeah.
But little do you find out, another joke that he's playing.
Yeah, and now he's like pissed everybody off. He's just took it too far, done too many jokes, and he's pissed everybody off. And Vera's the girl he's like kind of trying to like get with or whatever.
Well, technically this has been their like, it's almost like kind of they're trying to set them up.
Blind date
yes.
essentially. And so everyone's kind of pissed off, and Vera decides she's gonna go off to get supplies. But Shelly pretty much like not begs to go with her, but is like insistent that he goes with her.
Yeah, because he doesn't want he was I need to get some air too. I need to get out of here too. Even though he's the reason why people need to get out of here because he just because if his pranks that they don't his shenanigans that they don't think are funny. But yeah, so she agrees and she drives them into town. And that they're going to go to like a gas station, general store or whatever, a grocery market or whatever. And this is when we get some new characters, the biker gang. And they end up running into it and said, we're basically, they're kind of picking on them. They're there to pick up some groceries and they drop a wallet and the girl picks it up and she's like, kind of taunting her, like, is this your wallet? She opens it up. She's like, is this your rubber? And she's like, give me back my wallet. And she's like,
it's really Shelly's wallet, but yes.
Yeah. But she's like, didn't someone ever teach you manners? Like for the person who stole something.
Yeah, I know.
Right. But yeah, so, they end up, basically getting the wallet back and, they are trying to get the hell out of there. They don't want any trouble. Shelly's like, I just want to get out of here. Let's guys, just let us go. They get in the car. And another one of them comes out and starts kind of like low key being an asshole and kind of tries to scare him. And Shelly gets nervous, ends up backing up and running over the bikes.
Yeah. And so then the guy that went outside realized that, Shelly hit the bikes. And Shelly goes to pretty much just like pull off and get out of there anyway. And the guy was wearing a chain around his shoulders, but like a big chain link chain. And he essentially just like bashes their windshield in, bashes the windows in, and Shelly takes off, but then decides that now more than ever he should stand up for himself. So he goes back around to run the bikes over in this little
he backs up and hits them,
and then Volkswagen.
And he's like, I'm done with this. I've had enough of this stuff, and he ends up like, even his brother runs the bikes over in this little Volkswagen, and then so that they're like, I just repeated exactly what you just said.
Yeah, it's fine. So now the man that watched it happen, the biker guy, he takes off on the bike to go follow them essentially. But he can't, so he just ends up telling them, like, we'll be after you. We'll get you back. And, then you get a few scenes or whatever. Shelly gets back to the camp, and you realize that wasn't even Shelly's car. Not that they, like, claimed it to be.
Yeah.
But he pulls up, and Rick comes out and realizes that all of his crap's bashed in. And so he's, like, had it. He's like, I'm done here. Chris, you're being standoffish. My car's ruined. I'm going home.
Yeah.
And
which I would.
Yeah, I get
I don't blame him. I'll be like, no.
None of this is worth it.
First off, I came here for you, and you're giving me the cold shoulder. You know,
Yeah.
and now I gotta buy I gotta buy 2 new windshields. Fuck this shit.
Yeah.
I'm going fucking home.
Well, windshield and 2 windows. But yeah, but Chris lets him know, I really want you to stay. Please stay. I need you to stay. And he ultimately, he decides he'll stay.
So Rick decides to stay, and but little do they know that the biker gang has found out where they are, and they find Chris's van. So their idea is they're going to make things right. So they took their bikes, so they're gonna siphon out their gas and burn down their barn.
Yeah.
And but no one's gonna get hurt. They make it very clear.
Yeah, at least that's what he claimed. The main biker guy,
Ali, I think his name was.
Yeah, that's what he claims to Foxy, the girl. However, while Ali and is it Loco?
Loco, yeah.
Yeah. While they're siphoning the gas, Fox heads into the barn to kind of just like venture around and like be nosy. She's like beating on stuff, making music, just touching everything.
She starts swinging on the little track.
Yeah. And suddenly, as Loco is approaching the barn to go start to dump the gas, he's telling her to knock it off and stuff. And he looks up and she's no longer swinging on the swing.
Yeah.
After he climbs up into the hay thing, he finds that Foxy's been like completely stabbed with a pitchfork and is pretty much like hanging from the frames in the ceiling.
Yeah, right through her throat, which is pretty great. And before he can actually figure out what's going on, he gets stabbed with a pitchfork himself.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because it goes like right through his back.
And you get him reaching back and grabbing the needles of the pitchfork or whatever.
And then we get another 3D effect with the end of the pitchfork in the camera lens.
Yeah.
Still pretty. Yes, it can be kind of cheesy, but it's still a cool kill. You can't take that away from it. It's still a great kill. So after that, we catch back up with Rick and Chris. They have driven the cars into the woods to have a little bit of alone time. And now we're kind of going to get what happened to Chris. She's going to open up and explain to Rick why she's been so standoffish and what the incident was.
Yeah.
Clearly Debbie knows because she was talking to Debbie earlier in the film. But this is the first time that Chris is going to get kind of an explanation of what was going on. So the story is 2 years ago while they were there, she got in a big fight with her parents.
Because she had come home late after being with Rick. So that's how Rick has a connection to this.
Yeah, and she had her mom was so upset, she smacked her. And it was a big deal. She said that was the first time my mom has ever smacked me. I didn't know what to do, so I just took off and I ran. And she makes her way all the way into the woods and gets by a big oak tree. And she said she, laid down, apparently fell asleep, and then starts to wake up to hear some bushling around in the woods. And that's when she sees Jason.
Yeah, without his mask. Like the ugliest thing she's seen is what she says.
Yeah.
And she tried to escape him and he slashed her a couple times and she was fighting back and she thinks she was getting away, but she doesn't know. She blacked out at one point, and then she says she woke up in her bed the next morning, and no one has talked about it since. Not her parents and not her. No, it has not been talked about.
And apparently in the original script, there was some undertones that it was going to lead that Jason sexually assaulted her. But the actress that played Chris really didn't think that was necessary.
I agree.
And she didn't really feel like it fit her character. And she felt she was like a big advocate to make sure her character seemed strong and so forth. And she didn't feel like that was representing the character that she was trying to be.
Also, that's not what Jason does.
Yeah, I agree. That was...
You don't need to add that twist.
He's not a creep. He's just a murderer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
I completely agree with not doing that. Apparently Steve Miner was really big about it, but
interesting.
They came in together and they were talking about it on one of the set day of shooting it, and eventually she ended up winning. So
Yeah.
she got she got the portrayal that she wanted. And I agree, like I said, I agree with you. I don't think it was necessary by any means.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad we didn't go that route. But meanwhile, at the cabin, we have basically Shelly and Vera's relationship is not really going so hot.
Yeah.
He at one point he tries to talk to her and he's like, I really, really like you. And I was wondering, and she just stops him mid-sentence. She's like, no.
Yeah, this is after Debbie and what is this guy's name? Andy. I was gonna say that, but I was like, it's not Andy. They go upstairs to hook up. So Shelly finds this to be his time to kind of tell Vera, how he feels, that he's kind of digging her and stuff like that. However, she literally like shuts him up, like literally just like shh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And that she's gonna step outside and then they'll talk about it.
Yeah, and so he's very upset.
Yeah, you get the bitch.
Yeah,
as soon
yeah.
as she walks out.
Yeah, she the under your breath. Like,
yeah.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in those scenarios where like as soon as that person gets out of the sight, you're just like, yeah, fuck you.
No, but I do have pretend arguments in my shower, in like the shower.
Yeah, I know.
Go through conversations in my head, or like people that piss me off on the road.
No, I would say there's been tons of times where I've been in an altercation, and as soon as that person leaves, I'm just like,
but you're not good at being quiet. I hear you every time and usually call you out on it.
Who said I was talking about you? I'm glad you brought it.
I don't care what you're talking about. Oh yeah, people do that shit all the time. I could love you, but you still might irritate me, and I might have a fake shower argument about you. But yeah, you're not quiet enough, and I'm usually like, "What'd you say?" Yeah. You can't let that shit go. If you hear it, no.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah, literally.
No, because that makes the argument even worse.
Nonetheless, so she starts to get a little creeped out outside, and she starts to kind of like wander around and look around.
Yeah, a little time has passed too. Like, mind you, this is not as soon as, this is a little bit of time has passed since, that little altercation with Shelly.
Yeah. However, while that's happening, Chris and Rick, unfortunately, Rick's car battery dies and he can't get his car to turn over. So they start making the hike together back to the camp while this is happening.
Yeah. So, it cuts back, we got Debbie and Andy, they're hooking up. Chris and Rick are making their way back to the camp on foot, and Vera is just sitting on the dock. She's sitting with her feet in the water, and we get a glimpse of another prank from Shelly.
Yeah.
He's dressed in a wetsuit, and he's got, for some reason, a harpoon gun, and he's wearing a hockey mask.
Yeah.
And this one has been the last straw for Vera. She's like, she's had enough of this shit, and she kind of blows up on him. And he's just kind of like, I'm just playing around, just playing a joke on you. Mind you, no one has thought any of these jokes are funny.
Yeah.
You would think the boy would learn his lesson by now.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, no offense.
No, I agree.
Sometimes I got to learn a lesson, and, and sometimes I learned a lesson pretty hard with Becca, but I do learn that lesson. And I will say I would have learned it by now by Shelly. Mm-hmm. If I was Shelly, I would already learn that lesson.
Well, also the whole group has been like, that's enough. It's not just one person. It's like, oh my gosh, stop. Like everyone is kind of like, show that it gives them like the ick, to stop it.
And she just blows up on him, and he storms off, like he's all like upset or whatever. So he takes off, and while he's walking away, he hears some rumbling around the barn, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he thinks it's the stoner couple. I think they're in the barn or whatever, messing around. So he goes to investigate. Cuts back to Vera back with her feet in the water, and she ends up pulling out Shelly's wallet to look at it, drops in the water because she sees a picture of Shelly and his mom, and I guess starts to feel bad about blowing up on him. So she goes to get the water, the wallet out of the water, and here we go, the first time in the flesh with the hockey mask, we get Jason. And okay, so the first Friday 13th that I had ever seen was the first one in fullness. That's the first one I ever saw in fullness. I was when I was 13. Long story. I mean, not long story, but I've told this story many times.
Yeah.
This is the first scene I've ever seen of the Friday 13th franchise.
Mm.
I remember it was like I think I was 7 years old, and it was on Halloween. I went to my mom's friend Jan's house. They were twins. There was Jan and Jen. And we went to Jan's house, and I had got done trick or treating. I think I was Kane that year. My mom had made me a Kane outfit because I was really getting into wrestling. So I was Kane, and I was eating my candy, and I was flipping through the channels because the grown-ups would socialize, and I was always in this. They would let me sit in the spare bedroom, and I could just watch TV while they socialized after trick or treating was done. And I end up coming across Friday 13th, and I was just watching the movie, and this is the first scene I ever saw, and it scared the shit out of me. Immediately had to change the channel.
Yeah, so essentially she thinks it's Shelly, and she's telling him, knock it off. However, it's actually Jason, and he uses the harpoon gun to just shoot her like right in the eye.
Yeah, right before that, she goes, "Wait, who are you?
Yeah.
Stop messing around. That's not funny." And then we get this harpoon, yeah, like you said, goes directly into the audience and then right into her eye. That is the one downfall to rewatching these in like 4K and stuff like that when you're not watching on like a standard VHS on a CRT. Some of the 3D effects
make it blurry and just weird.
Well, you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see the effect. You can see the wire and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, as time has passed, like those don't age as well.
Harpoon guns do have a wire, right?
No, I'm saying you can see it traveling on a wire.
Okay.
I mean,
I was just letting you know because harpoon guns do have a wire.
No. There's
they have
like
fishing line attached to them.
There's several.
I get what you're saying now. Yeah. I was just making sure there wasn't a confusion.
There's several scenes where that happens throughout the film where an effect happens and you can see the wire,
the behinds of it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and that like with these kind of things, it does suck because it does take the illusion out a little bit versus when you watch this VHS on a nice CRT, you're not really going to see that. And it kind of hides that kind of stuff. So, that's the only downfall to as technology gets better and better.
Yeah.
Some of these things don't really hold up as well. And I understand like sometimes there's no need to go and digitally edit and clean things up because you still want the natural original film. But great kill. She falls back right into the water with the harpoon sticking right out of her eye. And, the rest is history. Now we have the Jason that went on to the entire rest of the franchise.
Yeah. So then you switch into the cabin and you get our stoner couple. Do they even have names?
Chili and Chuck.
Okay. Our stoner couple are inside the cabin and they're kind of like chilling or whatever. However, as they're hanging out and stuff, the guy, Chuck, decides he's going to go out real quick and smoke a joint in the little like outhouse.
Yeah, it's pretty gross looking.
Yeah, and he's in there and he starts smoking, he lights up, and the outhouse starts shaking and he's like, "Oh, this is some crazy shit." And then he realizes like the outhouse is actually shaking.
Yeah.
However, he goes out, he doesn't see anything. He goes in the house to where Chili is, and as they're kind of going back and forth, the power goes out.
Yeah, and at that same time as this is simultaneously happening, we also have Debbie and Andy. They're upstairs and they've just gotten done making love, which is pretty funny because like there's a cute little their banter is pretty funny. Like she's pretty comical. Like there's one part where they start to get dressed and they're about to have sex. And he's like, "So how do we do this?" She's like, "Well, first you take your clothes off and then I get on top of you or you get on top of me." And she's like, "No, how are we going to do this in the hammock?" Because that's their bed. So we got this little scene where like she's going to take a shower. So she goes to take a shower and we get another little almost fake scare where you think it's going to be Jason coming in the shower, but it's Andy. He ends up doing a handstand, which he hasn't done for the whole movie. Just for some reason at this point, he starts walking and doing a handstand.
He was doing them before out in the yard.
Oh, I didn't see that. I wasn't paying attention. My bad.
Roles have reversed.
I can't remember everything about the movie.
Oh. Shocker. But so he goes to get him and her a beer, and he's doing a handstand, and he looks up essentially from his handstand and sees Jason and just gets like chopped right in half
with a machete, and it's great. This kill is awesome. They end up putting a plexiglass floor in the cabin so they can see put a camera underneath the floor so they can see him tumble down as he gets hacked in half. It's awesome. So she ends up getting ready to the shower, and she's like, you know what? I don't want that beer. Mind you, this bitch is pregnant.
At least, yeah. They just kind of like dropped that suddenly, but yeah.
Yeah,
They mentioned it early on in the film where they start to eat the weed because the cops are behind them, and she's like, "Don't eat that! Like, I can't eat that. I'm pregnant," and that's also why she's been going pee a lot on their little road trip. But then they like essentially just dropped that whole entire plot. Because then he asks her, do you want a beer? And she's like, yeah, I'll actually take that beer.
Yeah, and to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure in 1982 they knew the dangers of drinking while having a baby.
Did it. People still do it now, but yeah.
Yeah, anywho, so she ends up saying, like, I don't want that beer and whatever. So she ends up, what's called, and I think this is like the only nudity scene we get through the entire movie. At this point in time, so far, the nudity has been somewhat classy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, nothing's been too schlocky and just ridiculous slasher boobies and stuff like that. Like, some of the slasher franchises are used to. Like, it's definitely early in that genre. 82. So we only got a couple years under our belt with major real slashers. But so she ends up going back to the hammock to lay down, and she pulls out a issue of Fangoria and opens up. We get Tom Savini on the page, and he flips it over to another page with Godzilla, and we get trickles of blood starting to hit the page. And she looks up, and there is Andy in the rafters, severed in half. And you see guts and everything. The
rafter, that's what Roxy was nailed to.
Oh, a rafter. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you see blood and you see guts and everything. Great. I mean, like this movie's got gore.
Yeah.
And what's called, and she looks up, and just like in the first one with Kevin Bacon, this one it's a little different because this is a machete, not a arrow, but we get a machete right underneath it, right through her chest.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is the moment where it kind of like picks up and a bunch of stuff happens to get us down to where it's pretty much just Chris and Jason. So unfortunately, Chuck, the power's out, so he goes turn the electric board on. This one's pretty quick. He's like fondling with the electric board. Jason jumps up, pretty much shoves him into the electric board, and just shocks him to death, electrocutes him to death.
Yeah, this one's pretty crappy. I didn't like this.
It's to the point.
It's kind of like almost like a little bit earlier. We didn't talk about it, but when like Ollie, when he goes to investigate to look after everybody.
Oh, yeah.
He ends up trying to attack Jason with a machete. He knocks him down and just beats the shit out of him with like a wooden stick or something. Like, I don't know what it is. It looks like a billy club, but it's not, because why would that be in a barn? But just beating him senseless in the head with it.
Yeah. So, unfortunately for Shelly, it's like the boy that cried wolf. He busts through the door with his neck sliced open, and Chili pretty much like is just telling him to like knock it off.
Yeah.
Because she thinks he's kidding again, because that's what he's been doing this whole time, when in fact like he's actually really dead. And she realizes like something's wrong. So she goes to run over to like tell Shelly to knock it off, stop it, and realizes that he's actually dead.
Yeah. And then she freaks out and goes around looking for people to let them know Shelly's dead. Mind you, bitch has got no pep in her step at all.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's the classic like horror movie, just
like she's like, oh my God, let me just walk as slow as I can up these steps.
And just like walk circles around the house, essentially.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's like, girl, put some pep in your step. Come on.
Yeah.
Someone's dead. You need to find someone, because so far right now you're alone. But yeah, she ends up like trying to find someone. She comes back down the steps, and there we go. We got Jason coming in.
Yeah.
He basically gets which it's been foreshadowed earlier, but when the fire's pokers, he ends up pulling the fire poker out of the fireplace and stabs her right through the stomach. Another good kill. It's so cool. It's so cool.
So as you know, you get that final kill, so that wipes out everybody that's on the camp so far. However, Rick and Chris finally make it back to the camp. And they're like, this is weird. It's very quiet for, the party group. It's kind of early for them to be this quiet. So they go inside to check it out to see what all is going on.
Yeah. So as they go inside and they're looking around and they can't find anybody, and they hear some stuff outside. So they both goes to Rick goes outside, then Chris goes after Rick, and she can't find Rick.
Yeah.
Jason has got his hands on Rick. So she goes back in the cabin, and this is another 3D effect that we get where he ends up crushing Rick's head and popping his eye out.
Yeah, pretty much like right around the corner from Chris.
Yeah.
And so, but she doesn't know that's happening. So she goes back into the camp or whatever, the cabin, to try to figure out what all is going on. And Jason makes his way into the cabin, essentially.
Yeah, he ends up throwing Chris through the window.
Yeah, and not Chris, Rick.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he ends up throwing Rick through the window, which is kind of like in the first one.
Yeah.
Where I can't remember which of the ladies was, but like ends up getting thrown through, the girl in the raincoat or whatever.
Yeah.
It is kind of fun where they kind of recycle kills and stuff like that, but it's still fun. It's not like, oh, that's a ripoff. It's like, I kind of like that because it's in the franchise. It's a movie within the movie. You know what I mean?
So now you get, Chris and Jason kind of chasing after each other. Chris takes up the spiral staircase. She pushes a bookcase over the railing to try to stop Jason. Then she goes to this closet at the end of the hallway to shut herself in. And again, it's your cliche, same thing as Chili, like just aimlessly running around the house in all the wrong directions, pretty much, like every other scary movie. However, when she's locked inside the end of the hallway closet, that is when she finds Debbie, and that Debbie's dead. So she screams, which also reveals where she's at. And Jason comes up and starts hacking away at the door. But she takes the blade out of Debbie, and as he comes through the door, she tries to like slice him up, misses like a bajillion times.
She stabs him in the hand at first.
Yeah.
And then that's when she's trying to like really like get at him while they're going down the hallway. And then she ends up tumbling forward and stabbing him in the knee.
Yeah, above the kneecap.
Which is really cool. Like these Jason scenes are great. Jason killing in this movie is top notch. Like I really like these scenes. Like he is just like he's just a beast. Like I don't know, like I like the fact that he is getting hurt multiple times and he just won't stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
it's very cool.
She goes into one of the rooms and throws a chair through the top window and is hanging out of it. He grabs onto her by the jacket. Her jacket rips. She falls down. And then she gets in her van. Unfortunately, it's out of gas. She kicks, but she doesn't realize that until she gets to the bridge.
Yeah.
After she tries to run Jason over. So you, at first, are like, okay, she's going to escape because she gets stuck on the bridge. But then I guess this was an old car thing, but they have a reserve in case you run out of gas, so like a secondary gas tank. She tries to kick it into the reserve. However, I guess suddenly the weight of her car has like fucked up one of the bridge planks.
It's a break at the plank, which is kind of cool. Like this scenario, it's if you played the game, this is part of the game. You got to get the gas, put it in the van to get out of the distance to get away from Jason to get help. That's like one of the ways that you can beat the game.
So he ends up jumping up, grabbing her by the throat. She closes the windows on him. She climbs out the other door, and instead of running the opposite way of the camp and just giving that a shot, she runs back to the barn.
Yeah, she runs back to the barn to basically try to basically hide out in the barn.
Hide out / like get ready to fight him. So she makes her way back to the barn and she tries to lock herself into the barn with like a shovel, essentially. Instead of like, you find out right near the shovel is the actual door guard.
Yeah.
He breaks through it. He gets into the door and locks the door from the inside with the actual like big plank. That's like the door locker thing.
Yeah. So she is, obviously she's hiding away from him. So she is going all the way upstairs to the loft in the barn.
So she makes her way upstairs, but instead of like making her way upstairs and hiding like in the actual upstairs, she like a sloth or like a koala is hanging from one of like the support beams up in the air and is watching him tear stuff up. But she slowly like spins around and loses grip and falls right on top of him. And they scramble to get up, and she scrambles back up to then try to hide inside the hay with the shovel, instead of just hiding in the hay in the first place upstairs and not from a support beam. So she pushes hay over to block the stairs to get up there, and she's hiding behind another haystack, and he obviously like just shoves the hay out of the way, gets up there, and she nails him in the head with a shovel and knocks him out.
Yeah, she knocks him out, and at this point in time, where she's going to take the lever noose that they've been using to bring hay bales up into the loft to storage, she wraps it around his neck. And as he starts to come to, she pushes him off the second story and ends up hanging him.
She thought.
Yeah, so she thought. So she ends up climbing down, everything. It's just like a normal standard horror movie fashion. You think the killer's dead. He's not. So she ends up getting out of the barn, and we get this just evil scene where he reaches after her, and there's just the force of Jason. He's able to pick his entire body up from the noose with one arm.
Yeah.
And get off the noose. He also likes to let her know who he is. He takes off the mask.
Yeah.
And shows her his real face.
That it's the guy from, 2 summers ago.
Exactly. But now at this point where he's about to attack her, Ollie comes back too, out of nowhere, because for some reason he's not fucking dead from getting his brains bashed in with that thing. He wakes up, he comes in, he goes to attack Jason, and instead of grabbing some kind of like,
There's
real
weapons
weapon.
all around.
Exactly. It's a barn.
Yeah.
And, he runs after him, and then freaking Jason just mollywops him with the freaking machete and cuts his arm off. And great scene. Blood's going everywhere. And then we see this just intense where like, we don't see him do it, but we just see him hitting in his direction. He's just bashing him over.
It's just slicing
him
him
over and over with the machete. Super cool scene.
However, while he's doing that, Chris has got some sort of knife, and she slowly creeps up on him and stabs and stabs him right in the head as soon as he turns around.
Yeah, hacks him right in the head, and we get this little couple like almost Frankenstein steps towards the camera.
Yeah.
Where he takes like 3 steps and he just falls to his knees.
Yeah. And you think he's dead, but instead of Chris leaving the camp or going back to her van and trying to kick in the reserve and maybe, push her van off the broken plank since there's only one tire, no, she decides to get into the canoe.
Yeah, kind of,
out of all the other options.
People like canoes for some reason. Alice liked the canoe in the first one. I guess
that
was
the
only
setup for whatever Yeah, you'll find out.
She ends up getting in the canoe, and she's now it's
decides to fall asleep till morning.
Exactly, and she wakes up, and now she sees a house, and then there is Jason in the window.
It's the cabin.
It's the cabin house.
Yeah. I think so, and it's the window at the top floor.
Okay, whatever. I just thought it was another house, and he had found her, basically.
And so she's like frantic, doesn't know what to do. He's like, he looks so happy to see her.
Oh yeah, he's got his mask off, blood's everywhere.
Yeah, and he's like jolly, comes running out of the cabin. And she's focused on him. However, you get your traditional Mrs. Voorhees jump scare where she jumps out of the lake and grabs Chris. And then we clear it, and it's the cops at the cabin bringing Chris out to put her in a cop car and take her, to a facility.
So this was the alternate ending where instead of seeing Jason, she saw Rick. And she was excited to see Rick. And she ran up to the house to meet Rick. And as soon as she opens the door, obviously Rick's dead, so it's not Rick. But as soon as she's opened the door, it is Jason, and he cuts her head off. He grabs her, just cuts her head right off with a machete. That was what they filmed when used Stan Winston's mask on.
Yeah.
But that, like I said, all they have is stills. There's no actual real video footage that I can find of it. So it wouldn't be a Friday 13th if it wasn't for a dream sequence. So this was all a dream.
Yeah.
She wakes up.
Yeah, as they put her in the cop car, you look over to the barn and you see Jason laying right where she had axed him.
Yeah, and then it just kind of slowly zooms in on him, and then we get, the infamous new Friday the 13th theme song, which is the disco theme,
Yeah.
which is super, super cool. Like it is definitely, it's definitely different than the original scene. I'm not seeing what I'm talking about scene. Music, whatever. It's definitely different than the original music. They call it the disco one. Super, super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was one cool thing is when I didn't bring it up in the beginning. I should have brought it up in the beginning, but like the music in this one's really cool. I do like these almost like a sci-fi twist on it.
Yeah.
The whistles and stuff like that. I really like that kind of stuff. And it makes sense because you got to think of it. This is a 3D film, and a lot of 3D films back in the day were sci-fi related to see 3D films. So it's kind of cool where I don't know if it was something that was just done on purpose, but I do like how they brought in that aesthetic for this. I really think it like adds a lot to the movie.
Mm-hmm. So now that we've all made it this far, I'll let you go first.
About what?
On our verdict.
Oh, on the verdict. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta say that. You gotta know what you're talking about.
Well, we knew that was the end goal this whole time.
I don't know. Is it the most underrated sequel in the franchise? Yes, I hands down think it is. I really do. After watching all of them, like I said, I don't understand how this one is not ranked higher on the likability factor. I just don't understand. I just don't get it. Like the kills are great. The characters are awesome. They're you like, the only two characters that are really kind of like meh are the two stoners, but
Rude.
But I'm just saying, really,
I know they barely show up.
Exactly. Like besides that, like everyone, I mean, all the characters are great. It does suck, like when they do die, and it has scenes with good tension. I really like the scene where you just see Jason just walking up with the hockey mask. I think it's really, really cool. Just like the whole like low key, like, I know it's not a scary scene, but just the low key factor of him just walking up and just staring at you while he kills you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's just something really badass about that. And also the way, just Jason's portrayed in this movie. I think he's nothing against part 2, but I think this Jason's a lot better than part 2's Jason, personally, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I haven't seen the whole franchise, so I will pick one out of the 3. I would say like my general favorite is 2, not 3, like out of 1, 2, and 3. Just in general, I like the characters more in 2 than 1 and 3. I also like the different aspects that they took for 2. Like I said, my one favorite scene was where Ginny pretends to be Mrs. Voorhees, and like it almost seems like Jason's falling for it. But I do, so in general, like I said, I do prefer 2. However, in 3, I do like, like you said, Jason's whole just who he is. He's very big, and like you said, like when he's thrashing around the barn, throwing stuff around, like, I mean, I've never seen pictures of Rick Booker, or is it Rick or Richard?
Richard Booker.
Richard Booker. But he seems like a pretty big dude with a pretty big, just like,
yeah, he was
stance in general.
He was a trapeze. He worked at the circus. What's that? Trapeze art.
You keep saying it wrong, and a trapeze artist.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
I'm, I'm saying it to you so you can tell me what I'm saying.
I know, but you repeating it was throwing me off from focusing on what it actually was. Trapeze artist.
So he was like really tall and really kind of limber and very
Well, he was
athletic.
pretty solid in general, not just limber.
They gave him some padding.
I mean, it looked well, or looked good. But yeah, so 2, all in all, I prefer out of the 3. However, 3's Jason seems more present and starts to form kind of like a whole, character at this point, a whole, person, not person. I mean, he's always been there, but his presence feels more known in
Yeah,
this one.
I personally think this is the most iconic film in the franchise because this is where we get the hockey mask. This is where Grayson. This is where Jason develops into Jason.
Yeah.
And then, as the story goes on, and the fourth one, he's not actually dead.
Well,
And
don't.
what?
I haven't seen him, and we're gonna see him, so don't spoil it for me.
I'm not spoiling. I'm just saying he's not dead. He's not dead. That's all.
Well,
I'm saying.
obviously, there's 12.
Yeah. Well, 12, but like Freddy vs. Jason, and then the remake.
Oh, he's still alive for Freddy versus Jason to happen.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's our feedback. Please feel free to leave a comment with what you think, even if it's different than what we think. Let us know which one in the franchise you believe is the big hit, is the table turner.
Yeah, let us know what you think. What's called like I said, is this one? Are we wrong? You know what I mean? Or what's called
I don't think there's a right or wrong, but share your preference. I mean, everyone has a different yum. But yeah, definitely share your feedback on which one you think is the best out of the Jason franchise. We love to hear your opinions, even if it's not 2 or 3. And as always, thank you for watching episode 44. You can see all of our episodes in our social media links, watch and listen at videovillaentertainment.com. And if you would like to see us in person and are in the DMV area, next Friday the 13th, we will be joining Crypt Video Rental and Vintage View Cinemas at the Cult Classic Brewery. I believe it's in like Stevensville area of Maryland. We'll be there hanging out with some other, cool people that'll be vending the event as well, if you want to see us in person.
Yeah, and that is September Friday the 13th.
Yes, not December, because we get a Christmas Friday the 13th
Yes, we do.
this year. I'm excited for that one. But definitely like, view, subscribe, give us a follow if you guys don't already. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you for episode 45.